I'm going to throw out a few announcements really quick before we get started with this amazing feature presentation. So volunteer opportunities are probably what you're looking for if you're a pre-health major. We have heard from TMC that they are going to hold off until after Thanksgiving to open up volunteer opportunities again. So go ahead and check that out in December. Otherwise, Z Mansion every Sunday from 9 to 11:30 is helping out the homeless. They have a huge operation at Z Mansion. Really great if you want to learn more about health disparities, how they play into societal roles, and different things that play into homelessness and public health in general. So check that out. I'll be coming the next 2 weeks to Z Mansion, so I hope to see you there. Other than that, the Safer Contact Tracing team is still looking for volunteers. We have the link for that in our newsletter, so check that out. Gloria, do you want to talk a little bit about the scholarships available?
Yes, thank you for the segue. So on November 25th, we actually have 2 scholarship applications due for the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And so the first scholarship is called Easy Hope Scholarship. And so that one you have to have a recommendation letter for it and 2 essay components, but you're able to be funded for the semester. And if you want to split it up, you can talk to them and sign a contract, and they'll actually disperse it between what semesters you're interested in and breaking it up to. And they have different funding amounts. And they also have Easy Hope ambassadors. So if you're looking for a more leadership position and being able to connect with other pre-health students that are in similar or different paths, you're able to apply to that one too. And they have the same deadline. So make sure to keep eyes on that. And even if you can't apply this semester, just keep in mind what the application looks like, because it'll open up again in the spring and next fall.
Awesome, thank you for that. Otherwise, I just want to note, we're almost done with the semester. Thanksgiving break is coming up. Make sure you stay safe, stay healthy, and do the best that you can to contain the spread. Other than that, I wish you the best of luck on finals. We'll have one more meeting possibly before the end of the semester, but we'll keep you updated on that. So thanks for coming to today's presentation, and I hope you enjoy it. Go ahead, Max, do your thing.
No. So today, we got a treat for you guys. I'm going to talk about one of the best subjects in history, AIDS. It's going to be really great, trust me. So what really got me into AIDS, learning about it, of course, I don't want to get it, but anyway, what got me into learning about AIDS is actually a book. It's called The Hot Zone. A very nice book. It actually talks more about Ebola, but still talks about AIDS quite a bit. Very, very nice book to read. I read this book right after I read The Catcher in the Rye. Okay, anyways, so AIDS, all right, okay. So we'll start with a brief history here. So, hang on, moving everything. Yeah, okay, so AIDS originated somewhere in Africa, or HIV, well, anyway. So HIV originated somewhere in Africa, and we will actually never know exactly where in Africa it began. So, and we weren't really aware of this disease was actually traveling until it was just we started getting a lot of people dying from a similar cause. And so anyway, HIV really traveled along this road throughout transcontinental sub-Saharan Africa, and it's called Kinshasa Highway, or the AIDS Highway. And it just goes basically from the Congo all the way to Kenya. So a lot of fun places along that route. And then where it became big in the United States, so it started off in 1981. I think it was 5 patients came in with this pneumonia, and this particular type of pneumonia wasn't present at all. And it was in Los Angeles, I didn't say that. And what was really interesting was all 5 of these patients were homosexual. And it really puzzled these doctors, what was going on, because, it's just what the hell, we've never experienced anything like this, And so they started calling this disease GRID. And does anybody know what GRID stands for or stood for? Melissa?
I believe it stands for gay-related immunodeficiency.
Yes, it does stand for that. I wonder how you knew that.
Which is very sad, by the way.
Yes, very sad. And anyway, so it was originally known as GRID, but then a whole bunch of other patients started coming in with symptoms such as that particular type of pneumonia. And there was this one type of cancer known as a Kaposi's sarcoma, and it was normally present in 80-year-old men, whatever. But here we had these 20-year-old guys coming in with it, and it was just okay, something's going on here. So then they started calling it AIDS once they figured out what was going on. A little bit more. Okay, so then here's some basic stats. So since 2019, there have been 76 million cases of HIV/AIDS. And of those people, 40 million have died. Quite a lethality rate, if I might say. And, nowadays, 38 million people have HIV or AIDS, and it's like HIV has become very manageable nowadays, and that's why you see such a decreased concern for it. But still present, anyways. And there are 10,000 homeless people in Arizona who actually have AIDS. It's very unfortunate. And then there are 3 people who have been cured of AIDS. Well, supposedly 3. So one is the Berlin patient, and it's the guy on the left up here. And as you guys may have guessed, he's gay. But anyway, so he got AIDS somehow, and he went through this one process or treatment where they started replacing his blood with a similar or somebody's blood who was very similar to his. Like they had very similar genetics, and essentially what they did was they kind of washed out the HIV. And then, yeah, we'll just move on. Oh, whoops, sure. Anyways, okay, so here's some characteristics of HIV. It's a retrovirus. Does anybody know what the central dogma is? Remy, do you know what the central dogma is?
I do not. I'm sorry.
Anish, do you?
I remember hearing that term, but I'm blanking on it now. I think it's not. I'm drawing a blank. I remember hearing that in one of my classes, and I completely forgot what it's about.
Okay, I'm gonna let you off the hook just this one time. Somebody, please let me hear what the central dogma is.
It has something to do with DNA, right?
Yes, Charlie.
It's like
Yes.
translation, transcription, something like that, right?
Okay, so I'm just gonna say it. Anyway, okay. So the central dogma is you go from DNA to RNA to protein. But actually, in reality, it's DNA to RNA, but then you can reverse RNA to DNA, by the way. And then also proteins regulate DNA, but yeah, anyways, yes. So this is retrovirus, meaning that the virus itself, like it stores its genetic information in RNA. So when it actually infects human cells, it uses an enzyme known as reverse transcriptase to convert that RNA back into DNA. So that way, it can use the host machinery. Indeed. Anyways, so HIV encodes for 9 genes, only 9. Yes. And 3 are used for the reproduction/infection, and then the other 6 are used for regulation of processes for the cell, such as shutting some immune factors down, whatever. So, and something that's actually really horrendous about HIV is that it is the most antigenically variable pathogen the human race has ever encountered. So, meaning developing a vaccine for this guy is going to be very, very difficult. Very difficult. And its target is the CD4 positive cells. And I'll touch on that right now. Anyways, good. So you have your Th0 cells, which are actually so they're in the thymus, and you have 2 types of T cells. You have your cytotoxic killers, and those are CD8 positive. You don't need to know that, whatever. And then you have your CD4 positive ones, which are T helpers. Now these don't actually they play an indirect role in the immune system, meaning that they don't actually go out and do the killing. They're in charge of recruiting other cells to go and destroy, kill, whatever. So basically, when HIV attacks your T helper cells, you're not really able to mount a good immune response. Very tragic. Okay, so before I go on, has anybody here played Black Ops, Call of Duty Black Ops?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so you'll see why I asked. Okay. Okay. Next slide, you'll see why. Anyways, so here is the overall mechanism of infection, and I'll be going into depth with this quite a bit. Anyways, so we have our viron here. Can you guys see me annotating at all? I'm going to start annotating right now. You guys can see this?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. Yeah. So we start off with our viron here, whatever, and it uses a couple of its proteins on its envelope here to actually initiate contact with our CD4 positive cells. And essentially what happens is we have the viron making a more secured connection with the CCR5 protein. And then that causes a conformational change, which allows the virus to enter reverse transcription. Then you start processing genes, RNA, whatever, and you make more HIV particles, droplets, whatever. And don't worry, I'll be going more into this. Okay. Oh crap! Hang on. Oh! Hang on. Sorry. Okay. Now we're here.
So did someone hack your computer?
No, I just couldn't press the space bar or whatever. It wasn't actually changing. So anyway, okay. So step 1, secure the keys. Okay. So our virus actually approaches the cell and it actually like gets ready to insert itself into the cytoplasm. So the HIV virus uses two proteins essentially for this process. Okay. So the first protein that it uses is GP120. Does anybody know what the GP stands for in this? Roland, you know?
Glycoprotein.
Ah, good job. I wonder how you knew that. Anyways, so yes, GP120 will actually bind to your CD4 receptor, and this causes a conformational change. And this is actually shown here in the changes in the second and third, I don't know, virus picture, whatever. Yeah. And so this actually exposes our second glycoprotein, GP41. Step 2, ascend from darkness. So the virus actually penetrates the membrane here. And it does this by having that conformational change with the GP120 binding to your CCR5, which is like the pink pancake structure there. And then that exposes your GP41 to the membrane, which basically just tears it apart, shown in the picture. Any questions so far? All right. Ah, there's a solid picture. Okay, anyways, step 3, rain fire. So this is when, like crap hits the fan, whatever. So now with the viruses and the actual virus genome and reverse transcriptase in the cytoplasm, the virus begins to reverse transcript unit RNA into DNA, creating cDNA complementary DNA. You don't need to know that, but anyway, yes. And so we have that genome now in the nucleus, and then you get your machinery to start encoding proteins, and it basically starts using all the cell's resources just to generate copies of this virus. So yes. And then step 4, unleash the horde. So, okay, as I just stated, that dedicates all its resources. So you have a whole bunch of, the cell is now dominated by HIV, and it's literally just making more viral envelopes, virins, whatever. So something interesting, and this is why it's really hard to treat HIV, is that there's this proposed mechanism that an infected cell will actually merge with an uninfected cell. It's shown in this guy. Oh god, hang on. It's shown with this guy, this uninfected cell. Essentially what it does is it will first express the GP120 glycoprotein onto its surface. And the GP120 kind of sticks to the next cell, and GP41 opens it up, and it just keeps on infecting further cells, whatever. So the reason why it's hard to treat is that a lot of the vaccines that we use are used for they simulate the immune system through antibody production. And the thing is that if this virus really isn't going out into the extracellular matrix, antibodies are not going to be useful, not only spit. So you're just going to get screwed over, just like Michael Jackson or something. Anyways, probably Freddie Mercury's better one. Anyway, so yeah, and then another problem with developing a vaccine is that since this pathogen is so antigenically diverse, like you could develop a vaccine and it's already going to be changing by the time you actually get that vaccine developed. Yes. Yes, Charlie. Yes.
The question. Does the variation across HIV, would you call them like different species, or is it just like different variations?
No, so you wouldn't call it a different species because the virus actually hasn't changed that much. What you would do is basically call them different strands.
Okay.
And I didn't mention this earlier, but the reverse transcriptase is actually very prone to errors. So throughout one AIDS patient, you might actually have a couple of different strains in that one person. Yeah, but it's not so different that it's like Ebola and HIV. It's just it's a little trickier because there might be some variations in the glycoprotein or any of the other genes.
Okay. So what I was going to ask, I think you just answered that, but what I was going to ask is, where do these different strains come from? Is it from spreading from person to person, or is it as they differentiate in your own cells?
Yeah, it's literally both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah, this guy.
The breed guy.
Yes. Dude. Yeah. Questions? Nobody has a question?
I have a question. I just have to remember what it is. I remember having a question. Hold on. Oh, I remembered. So HIV/AIDS is transmissible through like blood and your mucous membranes and whatever. If somebody has AIDS, could they give another person AIDS, or after that transmission, does it start out as HIV? In the
Okay,
other
so actually, you know what? That's a good point. I didn't say this. So AIDS is like it's like the later developed stage. It actually takes a couple of years to go from HIV to full-blown AIDS. So, you know, say, you know, you got AIDS and you go and infect somebody, you practice unsafe sex, you know, then you'll probably give the other person HIV. And then that could, you know, go on to AIDS. That's why, you know, throughout Africa, you know, it's really rampant. And it's also because like AIDS takes quite some time to actually develop. You know, they're just like AIDS highway. You have no idea where like the AIDS village is. You just, you know, Africa's fuck. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yes. Any other questions? Gloria, do you have a question?
I do have a question.
All right, let's hear that question.
I was going to ask if there's like any research like on campus that's happening that like maybe you know of that you can. Like...
Good question. Yes, my research lab works with HIV. That is why I chose it. I saw HIV need to make a change in the world, and that is what I'm doing. Actually, we've been mainly studying a herpes virus, but yes, STDs. Yes.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you've worked with Dr. Purdy and you've gone to research AIDS, but then you've done more herpes work. What is it that Dr. Purdy is trying to accomplish?
So, let me go to where my work actually comes in. Okay, anyways, so can I really make this bar just okay. So where I actually or the Purdy lab actually, like where we come into play with studying these viruses is so right here, like this kind of like gray part, if you call that gray, whatever, that's actually a lipid layer, you know, like a fatty acid layer or whatever. And we actually analyze what's in that layer. Yeah, we analyze what's in that layer. We've also, okay, so that's what we've done with HIV, but with HCMV, human cytomegalovirus, we've worked more along the lines with what proteins are being changed. It's more about the metabolism in cells with HCMV, but with HIV, it's just mainly been what's going on with the lipid layer. Yeah, that was a very long, unnecessary explanation. But yes. Yes. Any other questions?
Can I ask one last quick question?
Maybe. Yeah, sure.
So before you mentioned that it's hard to create a vaccine for HIV/AIDS because it mutates so frequently or it evolves so frequently.
Yes,
What's the difference between a disease like HIV/AIDS and influenza? Because influenza does the same thing where it evolves so quickly. Why is it so easy to make a vaccine for the flu every year, but not for something like HIV/AIDS?
That's a good question. I think, and obviously don't quote me on this, but I think a reason why, like influenza vaccine has been developed much more easily than an HIV one is probably because we've been exposed to it for a lot longer, and so we kind of have a better idea of like what's actually like going on with it. And then another thing is that, and obviously don't quote me on this, but so something that makes it difficult with the HIV vaccine is this whole idea that the HIV vaccine doesn't actually travel extracellularly, like once it's already infected a cell. And I know that the flu does travel extracellularly. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, so you can actually promote antibodies, which has been a lot. It's been a lot easier for to develop a vaccine that involves antibodies than, you know, going off of the strategy that they're doing for HIV.
Thank you, Max.
But once again, that's only my idea. I'm not a PhD yet, but I'm getting there.
I have actually one question. So
Yes.
I know there are some treatments that they can't cure HIV, but they can sort of help slow the spread and keep it from developing the AIDS.
Okay.
So how do those work?
So a lot of that is blood transfusion. There is actually a very radical cure for AIDS, and it essentially involves So the only cell that HIV goes after is CD4 positive cells. So essentially, the treatment, cure, whatever for it is, you just wipe out the patient's immune system totally, like just completely kill it, and then you place that person in a 100% pathogen-free environment, and essentially you just keep clearing them out until you're pretty damn sure that they no longer have the virus present. Yeah. I mean, but it's extremely risky because even if the common cold virus got in there, the guy would die.
Has it ever been attempted in France? So,
I think that's actually what they did with the Berlin patient.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Indeed. Any other questions? Nobody has any other questions about AIDS?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Yes.
Oh, so like you mentioned before,
Yes.
how ethical is that procedure to completely wipe somebody's CD4 positive cells, essentially wiping out their immune system, in order to cure that? Because I feel like that kind of doesn't sound very ethical.
But AIDS is a pretty horrendous way to go. I mean, not like as bad as Ebola, but it's definitely something. I don't know. I definitely just risk it. I don't know of any ethical issues with it. But once again, yes.
So before the pandemic hit, you were about to go on a big trip. You want to
Yes.
tell us more about that, so those who want to go into research later kind of have an idea of what they could do with their research?
Yes. Okay. So I was actually going to go on a trip to Tanzania, and I think I could show you where Tanzania is. It's in one of the slides here. Yes. Or you know what, I'll just present it again. Yeah. So Tanzania here is a country in eastern sub-Saharan Africa, where Mount Kilimanjaro is. Yes. So I was going to go on a trip there, and we were going to work with AIDS patients and help them some way or another. Just help out AIDS. But yeah, I was going to go there, and I was hoping that I could get a better perspective on how AIDS actually affected people in third world countries, but I'm still going to go there because I really, believe it or not, I do really care for the people in Africa. They have a very special place in my heart. Yes.
And you did say that the research is somewhat related, right, with COVID, since you're working with a virus that can mutate. So
my research or my research lab?
Yeah.
What?
Dr. Purdy was also working with COVID a little bit too.
Yeah, I haven't been working with the project, obviously, I've been working on more HCMV related projects, but we've dedicated part of our resources, time, whatever, to SARS-CoV-2, the agent behind COVID. And I know we're doing a similar thing. We're actually trying to understand the viral envelope lipid layer and trying to understand, what's going on with that. Yes.
Well, I was just confused on why we see AIDS and HIV being less common in women if it is spread through semen. I don't know if there's something that I'm missing here, but
I don't know if I'm correct with saying this, but
So I was gonna say,
women are actually more prone to some autoimmune diseases, while men are more prone to some T-cell mediated diseases. But I don't know if HIV is really selective between men and women.
in one of my public health classes, I read a paper on the spread of HIV, and the authors of that paper postulated that since homosexuality, this was from a little earlier ago, so things might have changed since generally identity has become a lot more acceptable to not be straight in the last several years. But anyway, they postulated that since being gay was kind of a social taboo for a long time, a lot of people didn't practice as safe sex practices since they didn't. I don't know. But that was their postulation. So they were more likely to transmit it once it was. And then because especially in the 1970s, this was really common because they would have you would hang out with a small group of people who are okay with you. If some person within that group had it, then it was really easy to spread throughout the city within that network.
Excellent.
That might have changed now since things have since we have better knowledge of what causes HIV, and obviously it's more acceptable to not be straight. But I think that was the one that I'd read.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to me. I don't know why less cases. But yeah.
I think that is some solid explanation, and that probably is true or was true for that time being. But hopefully that's not the case anymore. Our partners with the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation has done a lot of work to help people who are in the homeless community and maybe in situations where they aren't accepted for their sexual orientation, who can get help and get help discreetly there. So hopefully that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, if anyone's looking to practice safe sex and wants like free condoms or like spreads and stuff, they always have like free supplies at the LGBTQ Center.
That's good to know, Gloria. Good resource, yes.
And even if you are shooting up behind that alley, behind the Walgreens, you can go get clean needles too.
Yes.
And they also have.
Yes.
If you are exposed, there are ways to get prevention these days. So that's awesome. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add about your presentation, or any other questions that we have lingering?
No.
A round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Max.
Yes, thank you so much.
Was that worth hearing, guys? It's good hearing about AIDS.
Very interesting.
What?
It was very interesting.
Yes, AIDS is very interesting.
You caught my roommate's attention.
What?
I said you caught my roommate's attention. I don't know if you can see her.
All right.
The
Yes.
presentation.
I want people to know as much about AIDS as they can.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Max. Bye, Max.
Bye.
And if you'd like to stick around, Gloria is going to help us out with a little bit of professional development advice.
Yeah, so even whatever part of the process you are at, like with your professional development, I just wanted to compile quick tips. I'll actually be on my Shift for Life lab after if you want to talk like one-on-one about how you can help improve your applications. I'll be working tonight 6 to 8, but can I become co-host so I can like show a presentation?
Absolutely. 1 second. And thank you all again so much for coming to hear Max's presentation. He was really excited about it, and he's been working with AIDS for a long time now, so I know that he was really eager to share that with you guys. So thanks for coming to listen.
Here we go. So I wasn't sure what kind of audience you would have tonight, but if you're starting off with a resume or wanting to start over, I compiled a couple of tips. Let me minimize my screen so I can see. So you want to start off by creating a list, and this is where you're basically going to have like a brain like blurb. You want to write down your recent accomplishments, any school projects that stand out, any involvements in clubs or organizations, positions that you've had recently in the past 2 to 5 years, any other like jobs and experiences, especially volunteer experiences. It shows that you're very invested in your community. Any certifications. So I don't know, you can like think of a couple, even I don't know. It could be anything like local or like nationally recognized, but it's all important because you can just like add it on. Any awards too. And then any soft skills that you have, or if you're like proficient in Microsoft, you'll want to write that down. And so a couple of examples that I thought of is like volunteering with like your organization. So I put an example here, like Global Med Cats, and then you put like at Z Mansion, and you want to estimate like how many hours you have, and then later verify yourself and say, oh, well, I worked in total like this far, like 9 hours. That way you'll highlight that in your resume. And then an example I put for a work position, I put worked at the Department of Neuroscience as a financial reconciler. And so as a pre-health student, it might not seem like this position has much to do with what I'm interested in, but we'll be able to pull different skills that you learn that are kind of universal. And this also transfers to any like fast food jobs, or if you worked at a grocery store, you also want to write that down and keep that in mind. And then you can write down any academic accomplishments. So I put maybe like Dean's List for a year, or maybe you had it for a semester. And then a certification I know that you can get through the College of Public Health is called Safe Zone. So if you're interested in like getting certified in that, it's basically being able to be a person who you're basically an LGBTQ ally. So it's really interesting to like have on your resume. That way people know that they're able to talk to you because you'll respect like everything. And then another like experience that I wrote down that could be an example was like translate at a local women's health clinic. And so I wanted to highlight there's no perfect way to have a resume, but what's most important is to stay consistent. So if you decide to not have like punctuation throughout your resume, make sure like there's no punctuation at all. Make sure to stick to one page, because most employers are like just reading through, or there's actually machines now that highlight if you pulled some of the words they're looking for, like organize or being able to be a leader. They'll like pull your resume and put you up in priority. And then make sure you tailor your resume as you submit to different like places. So let's say if I wanted to apply to be a medical assistant, I would want to change and kind of put all my secretarial positions to be higher up. And then remember to always change your resume and to not feel like it's always going to be one template that you're going to submit everywhere. And so I put a couple of examples here of what the outline could look like. So this was a student who actually graduated a while ago who was a nutrition major. And so you're able to look at the bullet points that they listed. And so they implemented APR, which is A stands for action verb, and then P stands for a problem that they were able to work out through, and R shows the results. I also included someone who also graduated recently who was a speech, language, and hearing major. So these are actual resumes we were able to develop. And so I wanted to highlight how they were able to like put their publications in, their skills, and obviously like work experience and stuff. And so yeah, if you're interested in having like someone work with you one-on-one on your resume, or if you just want to work through email, like I attached a couple of resources that you can visit. And then you can feel free to ask any questions in the chat if you'd like, or screenshot this. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Awesome, thanks, Gloria. And then you are there at the Life Lab, so that's super helpful to have an insider. So thank you for that. One last thing that I want to remind everybody about, I'm going to sign up for it. I think it's really awesome, is the virtual SLT. So this is what MedLife, the MedLife organization, is doing to compensate for actual physical service learning trips not being available. So with the mobile, I believe it's called the Mobile MedLife Movement. Anyway, they could have chosen a better name, but you get over 20 hours of shadowing. You get one-on-one with physicians, like as a mentor. You will get to partake in workshops. You'll get to see different areas of what a clinic would do there, and then you'll be trained in it. So you can actually write this off. Not only is it going to be like really easy to go and really cheap, but you also get to have this signed off as volunteer hours, shadowing experience, and training. So that would be super helpful for a resume builder if you're looking to do that. It is only $250, which is not bad, and that entire donation goes to the MedLife movement, which they're doing to feed people in Peru. They're trying to serve up to 1 million meals, and they're actually at 700,000 right now, starting in March. So that's pretty impressive stuff. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click on this link right there. That's where you can find the registration page. There are multiple dates, but it is limited, so sign up soon. Find a day that works. There, I think, are a few 3-day sessions over Christmas break, so that'd definitely be a great time to try it out. Thank you guys so much for coming today. And if you have any questions, go ahead and stick around.